Check this out, Base Inverter here, bringing you another Commander deck tech, and today we have another subscriber submission from Power of the Herd, and today we are looking at Tex-Thurid, Mare of Destiny. He's going to really benefit us because all these creatures we're going to create to take over the game are going to have flying. Tex-Thurid, Mare of Destiny himself, whenever we cast a Pegasus, unicorn, or horse creature, we get to create a token copy of that creature. And other Pegasi, unicorns, and horses will get +1/+1. So we're going to capitalize on creating as many of these creatures as possible so we can take over the game and develop as much value as possible. So let's get right into this. First up are all the Pegasus creatures. So we have Stormfront Pegasus. This is just a low-cost, efficient Pegasus. Similar to that, we have Concordia Pegasus. The only difference is this has toughness of 3, so it's going to be a little bit harder to kill and can block even better. Now we have Sungrace Pegasus. This one is lifelink, that way we can gain life. Now we have Pegasus Charger. This is a 2/1 with First Strike, which is going to be much better at blocking our opponent's creatures, especially when we make this creature even bigger. Now we have Cavalry Pegasus. We do have a couple of these effects where if we have certain creatures that don't have flying, we're going to use these Pegasus to give those creatures flying. So whenever Cavalry Pegasus attacks, each attacking human will gain flying. Unfortunately, we don't have that many humans. Now we have Trusted Pegasus. Whenever Trusted Pegasus attacks, another target attacking creature without flying will gain flying. Similar to that, we have Pegasus Courser. Whenever he attacks, another target attacking creature will gain flying. And also we have Phyrexian Pegasus. Whenever he attacks, another target attacking creature will gain flying. Now we have a unique one. We have Starnheim Courser. Artifacts and enchantment spells we cast will cost 1 colorless less to cast. This is going to be very beneficial for the amount of artifacts and enchantments that we're running, and we want as much cost reduction as possible. Now we have Written Wingmare. Non-creature spells will cost 1 more to cast. This is a good way to kind of tax our opponents. Now we have Arborea Pegasus. Whenever Arborea Pegasus enters the battlefield, another target creature will gain +1/+1 and flying. Now we have Sunmane Pegasus. This one's going to be very fun because it can block very well, and its activated ability, we can give it Vigilance and Lifelink. Now we have Shepherd of the Clouds. When he enters the battlefield, we get to return target permanent card with mana value 3 or less from our graveyard back to our hand, and we return that card back to the battlefield instead if it happened to be a mount. A mount is a very specific ability, kind of like a vehicle, but I'll touch on that a little later. Now we have Pegasus Guardian. This one has Adventure, so you can cast it for its Adventure side, which is Rescue the Foal. As an instant, you can exile target creature you control, and then you return that back to the battlefield. Sort of like a blink effect, but being a 3/3 flyer, every single end step, if a permanent we controlled left the battlefield, we get to create a 1/1 Pegasus. Now we have some non-Pegasus creatures. And my personal favorite, we have Archon of Sungrace. Besides being a 3/4 flyer with lifelink, he's going to give all of our other Pegasus creatures lifelink. He also has Constellation, so whenever any enchantment enters the battlefield under our control, we get to create a 2/2 Pegasus creature with flying. Luckily, we are running a very large amount of enchantments. That way we can trigger this. That way we can create a very large board of Pegasi. Okay, now we have Loyal Unicorn. If we control our commander, because of the Lieutenant ability, every single beginning of combat, if we do control our commander, we get to prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to creatures that turn, and all those creatures will gain Vigilance. Now we have Caliph, Sunmane Familiar. He's going to really benefit us, especially when we control our commanders, because whenever those commanders attack, we get to put a +1 counter on it. This also has Partner, so we can control 2 commanders. Now we have Diamond Mare. When this enters the battlefield, we choose a color. It's probably going to be white. Whenever we cast a spell of the chosen color, we gain 1 life. Now we have Crested Sun Mare. Other horses are indestructible, and every single end step, if we gain life that turn, we're going to create a 5/5 white horse token. Now we have Guardian Sun Mare. This is a mount, which is what I was describing earlier. It's kind of like a vehicle, but it's a 5/5 with Ward 2, and whenever this creature attacks, if it was saddled, you can pay its saddle cost, and we can search our library for a non-land permanent with mana value 3 or less and put it onto the battlefield. Now we have Selfless Savior. We're going to sacrifice this, and then another creature will gain indestructible. This is just a good low-cost creature. That way we can protect the things we really need to protect. Now we have Transcendent Envoy. Our aura spells, which are very specific enchantments, will cost 1 colorless less to cast. These are going to be very beneficial because most of these auras we're going to use to power up our commander or other very powerful creatures. Now we have Crashing Drawbridge. With its activated ability, every single creature will gain haste, because once we've developed a very large board with all these horse and Pegasi, we're going to want to attack with them that turn. Now we have Burnished Heart. This is going to be a very good blocker, and when we do, we're going to pay 3, sacrifice it, and search for 2 basic lands and put them on the battlefield tab. He's going to help us ramp out as many planes as possible. Now we have Vexilus Prayer. This has flash, so we can cast it as an instant, and has the static effect. Commanders we control will gain protection from everything, because Thurid Mare of Destiny is kind of the key piece in taking over the board and creating a very large board state. So we're going to want to protect him as much as possible. Now we have Moonshaker Cavalry. When we get to the point of the game where we have a very large board state with all these creatures, we're going to have Moonshaker Cavalry enter the battlefield, and every single creature will gain flying and +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures we control. So he's kind of like a white crater hoof. We do have one planeswalker that's really going to help us out. And what better one than Elspeth Stormslayer? She's going to enter with 5 loyalty counters on her, and has the static effect. If 1 or more tokens would be created, we create twice that amount instead. Or we can +1 her to create a 1/1 white soldier, -0. We're going to put a +1 counter on each creature we control, and those creatures will gain flying until our next turn. Or -3, we can destroy target creature a opponent controls with mana value 3 or greater. Okay, let's get into the enchantments. All these enchantments are going to power up our entire board, or really deal with our opponents from really doing anything that would prevent us from winning the game. So first up, we have Rally the Ranks. When this enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type, most likely Pegasus. Creatures of the chosen type will get +1/+1. Now we have Flowering of the White Tree. This is going to benefit both our legendary creatures and non-legendary creatures. Our non-legendary creatures will get +1/+1, and our legendary creatures will get +2/+1 and have Ward 1. Now we have Renewed Solidarity. When this enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type. It can either be Pegasus, Horse, or Unicorn. Creatures of the chosen type will get +1/+0, and every single end step, for each token we control of the chosen type, we get to make a token copy of that creature. Now we have Cathar's Crusade. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, we get to put a +1 counter on each creature we control. This is going to do a very good job at making sure all the creatures we control are the biggest possible. Now we have Sacred Mesa. Every single upkeep, we have to sacrifice Sacred Mesa unless we sacrifice a Pegasus. We're going to pay a colorless and a white to put a 1/1 Pegasus creature with flying on the battlefield. Now we have Blessed Sanctuary. We're going to prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to us and creatures we control. And whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield, we get to create a 2/2 unicorn. Okay, now we have Virtue of Loyalty. This has Adventure as well, so we can cast either side. We're pretty much at the beginning of our end step, we get to put a +1 counter on each creature we control, and we get to untap those creatures. So it's kind of like we're giving all our creatures a +1 counter and vigilance every single end step. Or if we need to, for a colorless and a white, we can cast Ardenvale Fealty as an instant. We get to create a 2/2 White Knight token with vigilance. Now we have Indestructibility. We're going to enchant a permanent we control, and the enchanted permanent will have Indestructible. This is going to be a very good way to protect our main permanent that we don't want to get destroyed. Now we have Legion Loyalty. This one is very powerful. Creatures we control will have Myriad. Whenever any creature we control with Myriad attacks, for each opponent, we're going to create a token copy that's tapped and attacking that player or planeswalker they control. We do have to exile the tokens at the end of combat, but this is going to ensure that we're going to deal as much damage as possible. Now we have some enchantments that are going to deal with all our opponent's stuff to kind of lock them out of the game. That way we can take over the game. So we have Authority of the Consuls. Creatures our opponent's control will enter the battlefield tapped, and whenever any creature a opponent controls enters the battlefield, we get to gain a life. Now we have Ghostly Prison. Because we want to prevent our opponents from attacking us, so creatures that attack will cost 2 colorless more to attack us. Now we have Pacifism. We're going to enchant a creature, and that creature cannot attack or block. We're going to most likely put this on one of our opponent's commanders or very large creature. Similar to that, we have Sheltered by Ghosts. We're going to enchant a creature we control, and when Sheltered by Ghosts enters the battlefield, we're going to exile target non-land permanent a opponent controls until Sheltered by Ghosts leaves the battlefield. But the enchanted creature will get +1/+0, lifelink, and ward 2. Now we have Detained by Legionnaires. This is exactly Pacifism, just a different name. Enchanted creature can't block or attack. Now we have Intercessor's Arrest. We're going to enchant a permanent, and that enchanted permanent cannot attack, block, crew vehicles, or activate abilities unless those abilities are mana abilities. So pretty much, this just locks out that permanent from basically doing anything. Now we have Grasp of Fate. When it enters the battlefield for each opponent, we're going to exile up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls until Grasp of Fate leaves the battlefield. Now we have Stormplane Detainment. When this enters the battlefield, we're going to exile target non-land permanent a opponent controls until Stormplane Detainment leaves the battlefield. Now we have Banishing Light. Same thing. When it enters, we're going to exile a non-land permanent until this enchantment leaves the battlefield. We're going to have a lot of these exile effects. Similar to that, we have Chains of Custody. We're going to enchant a creature we control, and we're going to exile another non-land permanent a opponent controls until Chains of Custody leaves the battlefield, and the enchanted creature will have ward 2. Now we have Trapped in the Screen. This has ward 2 itself. In order to target Trapped in the Screen, they're going to have to pay 2 colorless more. When it enters the battlefield, we get to exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment until this leaves the battlefield. And we have Banishment. This has Flash, so we can cast it as an instant. When it enters the battlefield, we're going to exile target non-land permanent and all other non-land permanents that opponent controls that have the same name until this leaves the battlefield. Most of these Maelstrom Pulse kind of abilities aren't that relevant in Commander, but every once in a while, if your opponent created a lot of like treasure tokens or tokens that have the same name, Banishment will wipe out all those that have the same name. Okay, let's get into the artifacts. We have our Soul Ring. Now we have Elixir of Immortality. I absolutely love Elixir of Immortality. It's a great way to gain life, and that way, you can continually cast spells over and over. Now we have Pearl Medallion. Our white spells will cost 1 colorless less to play. Any kind of cost reducer is going to be very beneficial, especially in a very go wide aggressive strategy, kind of like we're doing here. Now we have Unlicensers. This is a vehicle that we're going to use to deal with our opponent's graveyards because you can just activate it to exile 2 target cards, and if you exiled enough cards with Unlicensed Hearse, when you crew the vehicle for 2, it's going to become a creature with power and toughness equal to the number of cards exiled with it. Now we have Urza's Incubator. When this enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type, whether it be Pegasus, Horse, or Unicorn. Creatures of the chosen type will cost 2 colors less to play. Now we have Helm of the Host. Every single combat, we're going to create a token copy of the equipped creature, except that token will not be legendary. So we can just keep making token copies of whatever we want. Now we have Patchwork Banner. When this enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a creature type. Creatures of the chosen type will get +1/+1, and we can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Unfortunately, we're in mono white, so it's only going to produce white mana. Now we have Vanquisher's Banner. When this enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a creature type, probably Unicorn, Horse, or Pegasus. Creatures of the chosen type will get +1/+1, but whenever we cast a creature spell of the chosen type, we get to draw a card. Now we have Throne of Eldraine. When this enters the battlefield, we choose a color. It's going to be white. We're going to add 4 mana of the chosen color, but we can only spend that mana on mono-colored spells. Luckily, the entire deck is mono white, so we're going to produce a lot of mana just with Throne of Eldraine. Or we can pay 3 colors and draw 2 cards, but we can only spend mana of the chosen color to activate this ability. Now we have Banner of Kinship. When this enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a creature type, and we're going to put a fellowship counter on Banner of Kinship equal to the number of creatures we control of the chosen type. And creatures of the chosen type will get +1/+1 for each fellowship counter on Banner of Kinship. Now we have Genji Glove. The equipped creature will have double strike, so that's already a very powerful effect. But whenever the equipped creature attacks, if it was the first combat phase, we get a additional combat phase. Now we have Obelisk of Erd. This has Convoke, so we can tap creatures to reduce the cost of Obelisk of Erd. But when it enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a creature type, and creatures of the chosen type will get +2/+2. Now we have my personal favorite with Chimmel the Inner Sun. This is going to allow for every single spell we cast not to be countered. But every single end step, we get to discover 5. We get to exile cards from the top of our library until we exile a non-land card with mana value 5 or less, and we get to cast that card without paying its mana cost. Now we have the Immortal Sun. This is going to pretty much lock out our opponents from using their planeswalkers. And every single draw step, we get to draw an additional card, and all our spells will cost 1 color less to cast, and creatures we control will get +1/+1. We don't have very many instants. We have Swords of the Plowshares as kind of a little spot removal. Now we have Akroma's Will. We get to choose one of these effects, but if we control our commander, as we cast it, we can choose both. Creatures we control will get Flying, Vigilance, and Double Strike, or creatures will gain Lifelink, Indestructible, and Protection from every single color until the end of turn. Now we have 1 sorcery. We have Stormherd. This does cost 10 mana, but we're going to put X/1/1 Pegasus with Flying on the battlefield, where X is our life total. So the more life we gained, the more Pegasus we can create. Okay, let's get into the land base. This is a very straightforward, simple land base. We have Cavernous Souls. When it enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a creature type, and it's going to produce mana of any color. And if we use that color to cast a creature of the chosen type, that spell cannot be countered. We have our Flooded Strand, our Windswept Heath, Marsh Flats, and Fabled Passage. We also have Mare Landscape. These are all going to be very good at searching for all the plains cards. That way we can get them out of our deck as fast as possible. Now we have Plaza of Heroes. If we have a legendary, we're going to use Plaza of Heroes to protect it by paying 3 colorless, exiling Plaza of Heroes, and then target legendary creature will gain hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn. Now we have Nykthos Shrine to Nyx. This one is no stranger in any kind of tribal build. We're going to pay 2 colorless, we're going to choose a color, then we're going to add a amount of mana equal to the devotion of that color. Similar to that, we have 3 Tree City. Instead of being devotion, it's going to be the amount of creatures of the chosen type. Now we have Amiria the Sky Rune. This one's going to enter tapped, but every single upkeep, if we control 7 or more planes, we can return any creature from our graveyard back to the battlefield. Now we have Aganjo Castle. We're going to pay 1 white and prevent the next 2 damage that would be dealt to any legendary creature. Now we have Aganjo Seat of the Empire. This has channel, so we can pay 2 colorless and a white. We can discard it to deal 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature, but this ability will cost 1 colorless less to cast for each legendary creature we control. This is going to be a very good combat trick. That way we can destroy our opponent's attacking or blocking creature. And because we're going to be drawing lots of cards, we kind of want to keep all those cards in our hand. So we have Reliquary Tower. Okay, now we have Sunken Citadel. When this enters the battlefield, we're going to choose a color. Either it'll tap for 1 mana of the chosen color, or it'll add 2 mana of the chosen color, but we can only spend that mana to activate abilities of lands. Now we have Path of Ancestry. We're going to add 1 mana of any color of our commander's identity. In this case, it's white. But whenever we cast a creature spell using that mana, if it shares a type with our commander, we get to scry 1. Now we have Forge of Heroes. We're going to choose target commander that entered the battlefield this turn and put a +1 counter on it if it's a creature. But if it's a planeswalker, we can put a loyalty counter on that planeswalker. And we have 18 planes. And that was the Commander deck tech for Thurid Mare of Destiny. I really hope you guys enjoyed this Mono White Pegasus Horse Tribal build. All these decks that were submitted to me by Power of the Herd have always been very fun to showcase for you guys. And if you guys have any suggestions, let me know in the comments below. But until next time, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share these videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one.